50.6, which is the one that I cite, although Section C stipulates that you're allowed to have artistic performance with the acceptance of donation allowed. So I got those dropped. The other one was for failure to produce ID upon lawful request, my argument being that the request was not lawful. So after some time, I had some experience with these cases and just fed up with it and wanted to stand my ground.
Well, and if you look at the video, musician arrested for singing in subway, you show great restraint. You're very polite to the officer, but you do stand your ground. You say, I am not going to leave. I'm going to continue playing even after he takes your guitar off once. You put it back on and continue singing. I think you go into a Pink Floyd song. And it's just, you did it exactly the way you should do it, especially if you want to go after the cops later in some sort of lawsuit fashion to educate the cops in that way. But what are your plans to do with this in the future? And I mean, are you going to press charges against the cops? Are you going to go after this officer?
Yeah, I think there has to be repercussions for the actions. I'm fairly confident I'll get the charges dropped. I did get a loitering charge on the way to the precinct. I was riding in the police car with the officer, and he was rather frantically looking through his phone to find something to charge me with. And did eventually find a Depression-era penal law that for loitering in a transit facility for the purposes of entertainment without being otherwise authorized. And I would say that the law that I cite very clearly authorizes my behavior.
And not only the law that you cite, it's the law that he read aloud to everybody there watching they're witnessing this. He reads the law that says you're allowed to do this. It says it in plain English.
Yeah. It's there's a pretty blatant lack of integrity there on his part. Although I do have a modicum of sympathy for him, he is asked to do that. It's sort of a strange thing, I guess, with the reinstated broken windows policy here in New York. He's essentially asked to do something illegal by people higher up, and I don't think he was really prepared for that situation and didn't act in the way that I think most people agree would be acceptable. But it is I can see why he lost his cool. Not that there's any excuse for it.
Yeah, he wasn't prepared for someone who actually knew their rights, who knew the law. You're actually citing the sections and the code number to the law. And he read it aloud, and he still did. It didn't matter because he was being ordered to from above. And we see this in a lot of cases. I was a victim of it myself back in 2009 in Pittsburgh, where there was a 50-person protest, and 1,500 riot cops showed up after the G20 and started rounding people up, including students who were in their boxer shorts just coming out to watch. Why are there militarized police marching around with shields beating on them? So it is something that they are told to do this from higher up. But, we had a case about a year and a half ago, shock video, cop protects First Amendment. It's got over 2 million views on our channel now. And there were some protesters protesting the TSA at the airport. And the media person for the airport was trying to get them arrested and trying to get their ID. And he wanted to make an example out of them. And the cop said, no, they're not breaking any law. I can't even ask them for their ID. And there's someone who could have followed what this guy was saying, but he said no, he followed the Constitution, he followed the law.
Yeah, that's nice.
It's nice to see.
Have officers that'll do that.
Right, and then contrasting it today, we had a story on INFOWARS where a cop's following a group of teens and literally cussing one out. I mean, and that's why it's good that we have cameras so we can show this outrageous behavior and then get people disciplined, get them the help they need to understand the law, because it shouldn't be a war between us and the cops. It should be educating the cops and educating the people around us that we do have rights, and we should stand up for them.
Yeah, and that is a big reason why I will be pursuing a lawsuit. Although I have intentions to donate what I assume I will get a settlement out of this. It seems fairly clear. But I live in Bed-Stuy in Brooklyn, which is an area of New York which has historically been the victim of a lot of police misconduct. And I don't think I'll get that much money, but what I do get, I want to put back into this community in some way.
I know they've had the stop and frisk policy. Have you been a victim of that in New York?
Not to the extent that some people did, although I was arrested actually here in Bed-Stuy. I was riding my bike on the sidewalk from my doorstep to the curb. There's no one on the curb, but I got a ticket for that, and I didn't go to my summons. And then a couple months later, I got a ticket for the exact same thing from my friend's doorstep to the curb. And when they ran my ID, they found I had a warrant, so they took me to central bookings. They were running a warrant trap in the Marcy projects, and everyone uses the walkway. It's the easiest passage from the apartments to the parking lot. The walkway is part of the two courtyards that close down at a certain hour after dark. So the officers are allowed to just run anyone's ID who walks through there. And they were just rounding up warrants. It was in December, and it's right before bonuses.
Yeah, and I like how you're using this opportunity as well to educate people on the encroaching police state. You state, as far as a statement, I'd say not to put the blame on the cop. This is a symptom of a much larger problem. It's everyone's responsibility to move our society's values to a mindset where this sort of thing is unthinkable. We need to recognize that we have allowed ourselves to continue to live into a police state. So we are part of the problem by not knowing our rights, by not being educated, by allowing the police and the higher ups to slowly just encroach on what we could do, just living, basic living. You know, you're riding a bike and they're giving you a ticket for riding a bike. It's
yeah, I
pretty
mean,
ridiculous.
although I'm optimistic too. I've received hundreds of emails because I say my email in the middle of that video.
Oh yeah.
Just thinking that I want to get the video for evidence, not thinking that this that it would go viral in the way that it has over the last week. It's been I was not expecting this.
Was the girl who was filming that, was she did you ask her to film, or did she just start doing it?
I did. You can hear me at the very beginning. I say, "Can someone film this?" And then they were already filming it. So that was nice.
Yeah, it's very important that we have cameras and that we know how to use them, and then either get the information up as quickly as possible to the web, especially if you're in a situation where, you know, there have been cops known to come over and take people's cell phones and delete the video from them, especially in a police brutality case.
Yeah, I've gotten emails from all over the world, really, literally every continent. Egypt, Afghanistan, Ukraine, Morocco, China. Apparently they haven't blocked the video in China yet. I've gotten emails from there, all over Europe, and South America.
And there's even been protests. Protests have spawned up in the area that you're from and where you got arrested. People can't take it. You know, they have to speak out, and which is good. This is the way to do it.
Yeah, I mean, it's essentially a pretty small, like the actual incident is a fairly small one. You know, it's just someone wanting to play music and sort of an absurd restriction thereof. But I think it speaks to a much larger issue, and a lot of people have really been touched by it, which I think is great. That to see someone stand up and just say no when they're doing the right thing, because we're all taught to obey authority, and even when we shouldn't.
Yeah, from a very young age, that is ingrained, and that's part of the public education system. Something that we kind of rail against here. Anything else you want to add, and where can people find your music on the web?
Oh, well, I've been preparing a solo launch, but I wasn't really ready for this to happen right now. But I have a band, Lawrence and Lee. I would say if people are going to check out one thing, Google the Glow video. Lawrence and Lee, it's LAWRENCE, and Lee, LEIGH.
All right, yeah, and I'll put a link to that in this YouTube video. I'll put that down there for people to check it out. And you really are an inspiration out there for people who do want to confront the cops. Follow Andrew's direction. He really is an inspiration of knowing the law, remaining calm, taking deep breaths. Obviously, you've had a lot of practice and patience, and just not losing your cool, because once you lose your cool, then they can really bring the hammer down on you, and you won't have as much of a leg to stand on, literally.
Yeah.
All right, well, thanks for joining us, Andrew.
Yeah, thank you very much.
I also think it's interesting that Andrew was arrested while singing the song Ohio, a Neil Young protest song that was written in response to the Kent State massacre that occurred, once again by federal troops coming in and oppressing people and actually opening fire on them. You should check that out if you've never heard of the Kent State massacre. So kudos for Andrew and the people going out there protesting this. Here's a couple articles. NYC police looking into arrest of Subway performer. Protest held in support of Subway musician arrested in Williamsburg, which is a section of Brooklyn. And busted Brooklyn Subway busker claims he was tired of cops not knowing performers' rights. So there you go. There's a quick lesson on why you should stand up for yourself, especially when you are in the right, because there's one thing you can't do. You can't stop a man who's in the right because he just keeps on coming. This is Rob Dew with INFOWARS.com. You can join us on PrisonPlanet.tv and become a member and share your username and password with up to 11 people. It's one way to spread the information, help us grow, and just become a participant in this fight for freedom that we're doing every day here at INFOWARS.com. Thank you.
Well, that's it for the main portion of our show, but stay tuned because after our show tonight, we'll have a special report from Anthony Gucciardi and also Dr. Group, where they ask the question, are crisis actors being used to hype up the Ebola scare? And we'll also have 3 entries from our #Ebola contest, our entries to be judged on Friday, so stay tuned for that as well. Well, that's it. Go to PrisonPlanet.tv, get yourself a 15-day free trial of the nightly news, the special reports, the rants, and all of it is right there at PrisonPlanet.tv. I'm Jakari Jackson from the InfoWars Command Center, and we'll see you again tomorrow night.
Alex Jones here to tell you about how you can help spread liberty worldwide while also enjoying what I have found to be the best tasting 100% organic coffee on the planet. For more than a decade, my favorite coffee has come from the high mountains of southern Mexico, where the Chiapas farmers grow their unique shade-grown Arabica beans. We have now managed to secure these sought-after beans in a highly customized blend. Discover and try a bag of the Patriot Blend 100% organic coffee at InfoWarsLife.com. This coffee gives you a long, smooth pick-me-up for hours without the headaches and heartburn that so many other coffees give me personally. Hands down, this is my favorite coffee, and it's taken us years to secure connections directly to the Chiapas Mexican farmers. Drop by the site today, order a bag or two, and I don't think you're going to be disappointed. Available in original or with our immune support infusion blend. You will be supporting a free press, all the while enjoying a truly great tasting cup of my favorite coffee. Available at InfoWarsLife.com.
This is Anthony Gucciardi with an extended edition of this Wednesday's Nightly News. And I'm here with Dr. Edward Group, who was just on the Alex Jones Show to break down Ebola and some of the latest cures and research behind that. But specifically, I wanted to get into some breaking news on Ebola and also cover this new trend which has accrued tens of millions of views. These videos on YouTube proving that Ebola is in fact a hoax, and that there are crisis actors involved, and that the media, CNN specifically, is completely spinning it out of control, and that there's nothing really to fear. I want to get into that. I want to break it down. I want to show you the facts and evidence behind it. And I want to talk to Dr. Group because personally, even if it's not a major hoax, I don't trust the government to protect me. I'm not going to sit around while there is a life-threatening disease which kills over 70 to 90% of the population that it's exposed to, and pretend that FEMA and Obama are going to come and hold my hand and save me from it. So personally, I'm bolstering my own defenses naturally, and there are ways to do that. There's research as far back as 2003, even in the 90s, but there's also 2010 Harvard research specifically on compounds that disabled the Ebola virus. So Dr. Group, let's get right into it. First, I want to talk about your theory on what's happening, and I want to get into where it's headed, and we'll get into this whole this basic theory that's accrued tens of millions of views on YouTube of, is Ebola even a real threat, or are they completely propagandizing it? Is it completely overblown? Let's talk about that.
I think it's a good subject to talk about right now because I am getting emails. I know you're getting emails with evidence. Well, I don't know if it's actually evidence, but you know, we look at Sandy Hook, we look at some of the other things with the Boston bombings, with the staged actors, and there is good, I guess you would say, people have put together strings of what they are claiming as evidence that partially this Ebola thing could be a hoax. Maybe it's just in the United States. Maybe a little bit of it is focused in Africa and some of it over here. That's still to be determined, but I think it's at least worthy of talking about.
What is sensational, no matter how you look at it?
Well, you know, of course, there's a lot of things that still are unexplained with this Ebola. I've been deeply involved with Ebola, trying to track what's going on, looking for natural things, consulting with scientists.